Don't worry, be happy.
That's right.
That's how I start my workshop, by the way. I play the guitar and sing that song
Oh, that's
in the
awesome.
beginning. I thought it'd be it's kind of a cute, fun way to do it.
Welcome to another episode, actually my third episode of I'm Feeling Super Fantastic Awesome. Very special episode because this is the first episode where I have a guest. And I chose this particular guest because she's been a positive part of my life for the last decade. And I don't know if you realize that we've been friends for over a decade now.
Yes, we have.
So I want to introduce Ruth Grelewicz, Papuchis. She has
many last names.
Many last names. And let's talk a little bit about how we met.
Okay.
I was, in the mortgage industry for 30 years, or at that time 20 years, and I had recently been running call centers, but I came out to the field. And one of the things I had an opportunity to do was work within the Coldwell Banker environment as a loan officer locally, and I hadn't originated in a while. And my first office was in Miramar, Florida, and then my second office, or actually technically my third office, was your office in Plantation, and that's where we first met. One of the things that I loved about that office was it really was a family atmosphere, like a very closely knitted community. And when I heard that you were doing things like the Relay for Life platform, where we would go out there, I jumped right in, and then also the Toys for Tots drives that we did. So, it actually got me involved in philanthropy where I wasn't really involved in before. So I'm taking all that thing, but let me introduce Ruth. Ruth, thank you so much for joining me today.
My pleasure. I'm excited to be here with you.
Yeah. So, Ruth, tell me a little bit about the Coldwell Banker Cares platform, because, again, when I heard about it, I was excited that there was something out there like locally that I could really have a personal impact on, and I kind of just gravitated right to it, and I started jumping in right away. So tell me what that's all about.
Sure. I think many of us want to find a way in our lives to give back to the world, in our own small corner of the world in particular, and we don't always know how to do that. So I personally gravitated towards the CB Cares platform as well. When I was in the DC area, I was the chair of the program up there too. When I came to South Florida, I was so excited that they also had a very active chapter, because it gives us an opportunity to not only as real estate professionals to work with clients and customers and be out in the world, it shows the world that we care about the community in which we do our business. All the money that we donate to usually very small grassroots nonprofits comes from either agent donations or our fundraising as a committee. And we do all kinds of fun things. The talent show, as you know,
Yes.
which you've not only been a guest judge, but you've also performed in. So it's just something that's very near and dear to us, and it gives us a way to really give back in a meaningful way.
Yeah. So the two main things we started out with was the Relay for Life for that office.
Yes.
Out of Plantation.
Yes.
That was a super fun event. There was a theme in that event.
And you built the whole thing.
It was the big red barn. The big red barn. It was a book. It was over books, children books, and your office chose the big red barn. So I went out and bought a whole bunch of plywood and stuff, and we had a tent that was established, and I manufactured.
Amazing, actually, it was amazing.
Yeah. And then we decorated inside with the grass, and we had things. We had books to give away. Or actually, I think they're buy for donation, what have you. And there were, I think at the time they were having like contests, so
Yes.
we won first prize.
We did. We won a lot, but we really won this first prize big with that one.
Yeah.
And we dressed the part.
Yeah.
I'm trying to remember what we wore. What did we wear?
I had Zachary, Rosemary, and myself in overalls.
That's right.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
and I think we wore straw hats and things like that, like farmers.
And then one of the cool things about that, was it's for cancer, of course, but you have that candlelight vigil,
Yes.
so you're
Yes.
buying things and your candles and you're having in there. And that was actually the first time that Rosemary and I kind of went through the roster in our family and our loved ones and our friends
Yes.
of who actually was impacted by cancer.
Yes.
And I was surprised that I had to buy 10 bags. Because, we obviously love those people and engaged them, but we never put it all together of
Right.
how big of an impact cancer is on all of our lives
It is.
and how important it is to support people that are going through it and share with them experiences and help them, find ways of positivity through a difficult time.
Absolutely.
On my personal journey, that's been something that actually helped. It helped because I knew that giant community was out there.
Yes.
So when I was diagnosed, I went through, I didn't really go through a time where it was woe is me. In my personal
That's
opinion.
not you.
Yeah, my personal opinion is on cancer and how I approached it was I don't carry the burden of cancer. I carry the cancer, but my wife, my son, my family, my siblings, if perchance cancer is something that wins over my will and God's will, that they have to carry forward. So I've already established in my lifetime that I focus on other people,
Right.
which brings me that positivity. It helps me keep grounded and humble, because I'm more focused on what do I do that impacts somebody else, my wife, my son, my family, my friends, my work, my community. And that's something that really attracted me to you, because not just the CB Cares component, but you have since retired from managing Coldwell Banker. We keep saying keep CB, so this is what happens when you're
Not everybody
ingrained
knows
in a
what
community.
CD is, right?
Coldwell Banker Real Estate.
Right.
And what was really awesome was as we became greater friends, the things that you were doing on a positive scale beyond the Coldwell Banker Cares platform. And again, going back to the environment that you built when you managed that office, where it was truly a family. It was a whole bunch of people that were intertwined.
Yeah, they became my family because I was new here from the
That's
Washington,
right.
D.C. area.
That's
I didn't
right.
know a soul.
Yeah.
And I've always told all of those associates and you and everybody that I got to know here, God really gifted me with bringing me to that office.
Yeah.
I'd never heard of the city of Plantation before,
Yeah.
but it became just the most special, integral part of my life.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was a very unique office environment.
Yeah. I in previous podcasts, I talk about, doors are always open for us. They continue to be open for us, and it takes faith and strength to walk through the doors that are open. So that's a big one. Relocating down here, my family, Rosemary and I did the same thing.
It's hard and scary, right?
Yeah. You got to build a whole new infrastructure around that. So I'm so glad that you found an immediate family to gravitate
Yeah,
towards.
it meant
And
everything
to this
me.
day, that entire group is still so tightly knit.
We are.
Yeah.
Yes, we are.
So as I got intertwined and intermixed with that family, it was a natural thing for me to jump in and share and help, and everybody needed anything. I focused my energy on trying to make them, who they wanted to be or where they wanted to go. When I go and approach people with positivity, I don't thrust it upon them. I use the lead by example method.
Yes, which you do very well.
Well, thank you for that. It's, one of the things that's been humbling since I was diagnosed is I get a lot of accolades, and
Which you always just kind of slough off.
well,
You know,
it's I had a conversation with a friend of mine who was going through a different type of challenge, And my conversation with them, because it was very early on in that challenge and how they were, and I was very proud of how they were handling it. And I had the conversation with them. It was like, people are telling me I'm proud of you, and and trying to be supportive, but you're still in that like quasi. I don't want to say, well, for him it was a dark place. He was coming out of.
Yeah.
For me, it was more like, I gotta build a future for other people, without the knowledge of where I'll be in 5, 7, 10 years. But the way I approached him was, and again, I like to listen first, and I'm a person that's, come to me if you have a question, versus me imposing my opinion on you.
Right.
We know that some of the people in our world that want to be helpful, they go ahead and they impose their opinion on others, but nobody asked. So you have to find out where somebody is.
Correct.
Mentally, physically, and all of that. So as you developed your focus on positivity, what are the things, how do you go about it? I talk about lead by example. I talk about, waiting for somebody to come to you type of thing, or
Right.
look for that small open window where you
Right.
see the pain or the hurt or the scaredness. Scaredness, I don't think it's a word, but people who are frightened about what's going on in their
Right.
world, where you want to share. So give me a little bit about how you approach that.
Okay. So I just adored my position as being the manager of that office, but I knew that there was something a little bit different that I wanted to do. What I think the thing I was most drawn to when I was the manager was the relationships and the depth of the relationships that I was able to build with my agents and with everybody that we worked with. And so when I would do my coaching with them or my talking with them, the part of the conversation that I always enjoyed the most was trying to share with them how bringing what they are to the relationship with their clients will make a big difference. So it was all about personal growth and mindset and positivity again, and sometimes that word is overused, but just sort of an inner sense of peace and well-being. So when I decided to retire from that position, and I was very grateful and blessed that they, in the corporate arena, let me keep my position as the chair of CB Cares, because most people in that position are employees for a variety of reasons, mostly because I think they handle money. So they wanted it to be an employee, so they had to run it by the powers that be to let me to continue in that position. I was really grateful, because that would have been sad for me to have to give that up, but they let me continue to do that. But shortly after I retired, I had read a book. I'm constantly reading books on, people call them self-help. I don't call them that. I call them personal growth and life skills. I don't think of it as self-help. I think of it as personal growth. But I had, many years before, read a book called Happy for No Reason. And I loved the book because so much of what the author of the book, Marcy Shimoff, resonated with me. So one day out of the blue, I had received an email inviting me. It was from Marcy Shimoff, the author. I don't even know how she got my name. Somehow I was on a list. The door opened. And she invited me to become a certified happiness workshop leader and trainer.
That's neat.
It was neat, and I thought about it. There was a cost involved, and I thought, but you know what? This is something, I really felt like this was a message from above. I really did. It was so synchronistic in terms of the timing that I went ahead and jumped in. And I received this certification. And all of the messages and all of the lessons and everything that I learned in that workshop is the platform that I'm developing now to spread these workshops. I do it as a fundraiser for CB Cares. I have one coming up. But I've also gone on and earned a certification from the Harvard Online Business School from an author by the name of Arthur Brooks, who wrote a book, How to Build a Better Life, which is an amazing book. So my workshops kind of focus on a combination of both of those platforms. And I'm just excited to spread this word.
Yeah, that's awesome. because our journey of growth never stops.
No.
No,
No.
and in other episodes, and probably going forward, I'll probably express the journey that my personal journey where I was as a child to where I am today. Disappointed. When I was disappointed, I was terrible. I was a terrible child. Like,
You shared some of that with me, and I was kind of surprised at the past and how the transformation has been with you.
My mother just recently said to me, she said, well, you were, and that's part of where my positivity comes from is her. She's like, no, I'm glad you were strong enough that something didn't go your way, that you fought for it. I was like, well, yeah, I fought for it, but the way I fought was a little bit, and obviously I was a child, but it was, people were afraid. Like not afraid in a bad way, like I was going to hurt them, but more like an emotionally afraid. It was like, if I'm the last one at bat in Little League and I strike out, that 5-minute ride home, it's going to be terrible, and I was one of 6. So, and every one of course, a lot of unique personalities, and we're all very tight. But that was, something that we laugh about now. Because again, going back to those accolades, and what I was talking about with my one friend was when people would give you accolades and they tell you things, and you're out there just trying to be a genuine you.
Right.
It's very humbling.
And it's hard to even know how to respond, right? When somebody says those great things, it's probably like, oh, what do I say? Thank you? I mean, it's tough, right?
So do you get that a lot? So people come to you?
I kind of do, and it always, and I'm not saying, I'm trying to be humble about that, because I do, and I kind of think, I don't know why, and you probably feel the same way.
Yeah, well, as I dive further into all the things and trying to pay attention to the details, and go back in my personal journey, we're usually not built in that capacity. There's probably one of one where people are just so positive all the time. You can't figure out, based on the life that they went through. It's like, how the hell, excuse my language, but how the hell do you get that?
And a lot of times it's those people, right?
Yeah, that adversity just hardens them in a good way.
In a good way, yeah.
And most of those people have a very good relationship with God.
I totally agree with you there. I totally agree with you there. And that's actually one of the focuses of the workshop. That Marcy Shimoff, whomever your God is, whoever it is, whatever kind of God it is, there's got to be something bigger than just us. Because I think it would be difficult to go through this world without that, a belief in something bigger than yourself.
Well, we'll probably pivot all the time in this conversation, and that's great because that's how conversations go. But when the way I see things that are like all of a sudden pop in your head, I'm like, well, who planted that seed? And that seed's planted. Now, what are you gonna do with it?
Yeah.
Are you gonna water it? You're gonna fertilize it. You're gonna maintain around it and dig out the weeds to make sure it doesn't get choked and die off. They come all the time, and everybody gets them.
And you kind of have to decipher, where is that coming from a higher place, or is that just a thought I have? Sometimes we have to sort of figure that out.
Well, yeah, it's a journey, So I mean, where I am today with my relationship with God is completely different than where I was. I was always a spiritual person. I was very Roman Catholic, all that stuff. But I ended up more so right now. So a lot of the things that have not been my strengths in the past are my strengths now, because I had the faith to again start listening to the little details and walking through the doors and doing the things that I would think that are really helpful to everybody, helpful to everybody. There's not one person, even the most positive person, that doesn't have moments where they have to figure out a situation and how to come out of a situation. I've had moments, as much as people have even given me accolades, I've had moments where I'm like, a week or two where I talk to my wife with everything. I give her all the details, and
that's okay. Everybody has to be able to do
you
that.
have to have a sounding board.
You have to.
You can't have it inside. But it's that self-realization. It's like I'm going down the wrong path. I need to snap out of this journey. And sometimes
See,
you
you
don't
know that. Sometimes you know that.
Yeah.
But you allow yourself that little bit of time to just sort of, feel the way you feel.
Yeah.
But then it can't last.
Yeah. It's one of those things I get frustrated with myself on. Mm-hmm. So when you have moments in your personal life that things aren't going your way, family, friends, work, back in the day, or anything like that you can go back to and think about, what are some of the, if you can think back to those moments, what are some of the things that help you emerge from that experience? Because what I've found, and you might have found the same thing, is that even in the worst experiences, there was something positive that came out of it.
Right.
And then as you understand it over and over and over again, those moments don't become as, that huge gravitational pull downward.
Right.
You can feel the weight
Absolutely.
coming down, and you're like, but wait a minute, I've been through something similar over here, and then now that I look back 10 years ago, that led me to here, and then led me to here. So how do you do it?
It's such a great question, and it's really meaningful to me because there's a few ways that I do it.
Mm.
One is I have a morning ritual, and my morning ritual is I get up earlier than my husband because we decided a long time ago I have to have that hour first thing in the morning where I'm by myself. You have the same thing?
I'm the early bird.
Yeah, so I'm an early bird. I mean, a lot of times it's 5 o'clock.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's a little bit later, sometimes it's a little bit earlier. But I have my morning ritual, which includes a few things. And first starts off with reading some Bible passages because we talked about God. So I have a few different passages, and then I read some different affirmations and that sort of thing. But then the next thing I do, and this has probably been the practice that I would say has kept me grounded and positive and happier than any other practice, which is every single day I write in a gratitude journal. And I love to collect pretty ones. I posted a picture yesterday on Facebook of my newest one because I love it. But I do mine first thing in the morning, and I write down, I started with I'm grateful for, and there's a date on the top of the page. And I try to think of at least 3 things, but sometimes there's 10 things.
Yeah.
And there were the things that happened the day before, and that does a couple of things. Number one, it makes me reflect on all the good things that I have in my life. But the other thing that it does is it makes me go through every day knowing that I'm going to have an assignment with myself the next morning to recall those things. So I look for things throughout the day.
Yeah.
Yesterday I got to have lunch with 2 girls that I've been friends with for 50 years that I haven't seen in probably 40 years. And I knew as I'm having this lunch, I'm thinking, that's going in the gratitude journal tomorrow. I couldn't wait to write about it.
Yeah.
So that's one thing that I do. And then at the bottom of that page, I write my intention for the day.
Yeah.
So this morning, when I wrote in my gratitude journal, I wrote, I want to have an open, wonderful, heartfelt conversation with Brian, because I was so grateful that you had invited me to do this, but that went right in my intention for the day.
Yeah.
The other thing is, it kind of ties into what, of course, the other thing that kind of ties into what you said, which is life experience teaches us that you had a down day, but it didn't last. We know that. Experience teaches us that if you do the right things, you're not going to stay down. Yeah, you're feeling bad today, but you're going to be better tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, the old corny expression, the sun will come out tomorrow. It does. And sometimes I marvel. I felt pretty bad yesterday. Why do I feel so much better today? And I do have to say, for me, a lot of that goes back to, that's right.
Yeah.
I really prayed a lot.
Yeah.
I really prayed a lot about this, which always brings me out of it.
Yeah. It's funny, you do yours in the morning. I don't write down in the journal. It's mental for me. But I do my Thanksgiving of the events of the day. I try and look for 10 to 20 things in that day that I just had that were positive. A hug from my son.
It's always those
little
things, right?
The little things. He's 17, so he gives them out willingly, which I love that we raised a hugger.
Oh, you raised a hugger. He even gives me great big hugs.
Yeah.
Can I just share one reason why I
Sure.
think it might be wonderful for you to write them down?
Yeah.
because when you're having one of those bad days, I flip back through my old journals and I can look at the date 6 months ago and go, oh yeah, oh yeah. So it's a written account of your life, the best parts of it. I've never believed in journaling all the negative things that happen in your life. Some people do that. They find it cathartic, but I don't. I just like to, the things I'm grateful for, write them down.
Well, it's funny, if I were to write something down negative, I'd write the positive thing that came out of it.
Correct, the lesson that you learn, because there's always a lesson and a gift. And if you look for the lesson and the gift in any negative thing that happens, because there always is one. Sometimes you might not like it, but there always is one.
Now, one of the cool things about the company I work for right now, Guaranteed Rate, is, even they post on my behalf, like positivity daily. But they also, when we have the company get-togethers, which is every other week, we have what we call a pulse, and they're always talking positivity. They do talk about writing down the journals. Actually, you can get on our store, journal book. So you know what? I'm going to add that to my commitment of something to add to.
I think you would like the one I just bought. I'm going to get you one.
Oh, all right. Well, you don't have to get too
No, that's going to be a little
You already
gift.
got me something fabulous, which I have to point out. I brought it today. It's my favorite coffee mug. My phrase forever when people were, and I talked about this in previous podcasts, and it's the name of the podcast, is I'm feeling super fantastic awesome, is, the reason that phrase came about, that I started using it as a staple.
And I've always used it ever since I've known you.
Yeah.
This isn't new.
Yeah.
This has always been new.
It's coming on 30 years.
Wow.
When I started responding to people who were asking me how I'm doing with that, I'm feeling super fantastic awesome. Usually now I'm feeling super, it's just I'm super fantastic awesome. It lifted everybody up. There was not one person that might have been, down on their phone or down, looking down or walking past me with their head down, or I'm greeting them at the grocery checkout. That doesn't just pop up for a second. I'm like, well, usually some of the responses like,
too.
I'm not as good as that, but I said, well, that's a journey you can get. Or some people say, I love it, and I say, hey, listen, I might have trademarked it, but I'm happy for you to use it. Go ahead and use it. So, to me, and again, it's self-gratifying. It's like almost selfish,
Right.
because
It reminds you.
I just thrive on getting smiles or lifting up, even if it's a moment of the day, and maybe they're putting that in their journal.
Right.
Their positivity journal is like, I met this weird guy, and his response was, I'm feeling super fantastic awesome. I've never heard that before. But I got this one, and Team Super Fantastic Awesome, and now I have a hashtag that says Team SFA. It's funny you put Team Super Fantastic Awesome, because that's what my sister Tracy dubbed my sphere of support.
And I found my favorite picture of all of you guys,
Yeah.
because I love that. That was on a cruise, right?
I was on a cruise.
Yeah.
I was on a cruise. Every morning, if you want to know why I start out feeling that way, well, your gracious, thoughtful gift
It was my pleasure.
is utilized. And I don't know how much you know that I appreciate that. So I was overwhelmed with, again, the influx and hearing from people I haven't heard from since elementary school.
That's such a gift to know how much people care about you.
Yeah, and
it's a gift, right?
Because sometimes in social media, you're flying through things and you're just liking things, but you're not paying attention to things.
Right.
And those people who correspond and respond to things say, "Oh my God, you're paying attention." And I was like, "Well, I haven't been paying attention to you." I was like, "I gotta get on my game." So it's I think when it comes to positivity. Or for an athlete, when it comes to being excelling in a sport or excelling in a field or excelling in something, it's work.
Mm-hmm.
Usually it's not. There's some people have some parts of it ingrained in them, but it's work. every day you have to put in time. Journal is one for you. Reading books is another one for you. I do a lot of, social media, like look at the things that are out there and how people are reacting and responding to things. And I find it awesome when I meet people like yourself that, although you're on this journey from within, that you feel compelled to share outward, and that's what this podcast is all about, because there's always going to be people that are going through it, and I hope they gravitate towards this, because I want to see more things like this in the world.
I totally agree.
And I want to see more social media that lifts people up, not bring people down.
Right.
I want to see more interactions with people, like it's as simple as being in a car and honking a horn after 2 seconds because somebody didn't move fast enough.
And it's hard for us not to take that personally, right? But that's just them. I try because I'm not 100% at this, and I'm still on my journey. I try and say a quick prayer for them. I was like, I don't know what's going through their life, that they're frustrated at the little things. Right.
If they're frustrated at the little things, I can't imagine the weight that's on their plate.
Yeah.
That drives them to that. It's a funny thing, I don't know if you remember this. You ever watch Ferris Bueller's Days Off?
Oh yeah. That was my kid's favorite movie growing up, so I've probably seen it 50 times.
So there's a moment where he's running side by side with his dad in the car.
Yeah.
And then he double looks and he thought he saw the sun, and he looks back at his car, and then the sun, then Ferris runs off into the woods. But then he all of a sudden he's stops short on the car because another car comes through, and he didn't yell or curse or do anything like that. He had just a smile. It wasn't. I don't think it was a smile. It was just like this. Look at it, just okay.
Yeah.
Moving on.
Right.
And those are the things, like little things in my head, and I kind of, it's funny.
I remember that too.
Yeah, it's because I've had moments where I get upset and I get this, and I have friends that drive like maniacs. You're not driving, I'm driving.
Right.
And they actually make fun of me. I was like driving Miss Daisy because
another great movie.
Another great movie. Yes, a wonderful movie. As you see people and see people that are going through trials and tribulations, what is your approach to interact with them, try and share with them without being
preachy,
invasive, and some people could perceive it as rude, right? What are the things that you look at? How do you handle it? How do you figure out, what your hope is to help them versus where they're at right now, where they might not be ready for it, or
right.
They might, so what are the things that you look at, or signs? Tell me a little story.
So when I'm speaking to someone and they're sharing what they're going through, and a lot of people are very willing to share the negative that they're going through. Number one, I think you need to let them know you hear them. If they say something about how, they're just struggling and life is so bad for them, if you start saying, yes, but, they turn you off right away. They need to know that you hear and understand and can empathize with what they're going through. And one thing, and I learned this from a friend, you can actually ask the question, do you just want me to listen, or would you like me to give you some of my thoughts?
Yeah.
You just come right and ask them.
Yeah.
Are you just venting, or would you like me to commiserate a little with you? So sometimes it's just asking the question. Also, I think with most of the people that I know pretty well who do that, I know they kind of want to hear a little something.
Yeah.
They don't necessarily want to be preached to. It needs to be a conversation where they know that you know where they're coming from. But I am often itching to just say, yes, but try this, or yes, but try
if
that.
you only did this.
Yes, but you can't do that. You can't do that. And even with my children, sometimes I so badly want to just say the positive thing, but I don't.
Mhm.
I let it kind of lead into that naturally. And then I find that they've adopted some of what I've told them without even telling me that they have. Because I see it in
Isn't that
them.
the greatest feeling?
Right, it's the best feeling in the whole world.
Yeah, I agree, because I would tell you, when it comes to family, like immediate family, my wife, my son, I'm probably the worst at it with those two.
Because you want to just tell them everything about how they should be doing things and how
Right,
they should be.
or I'm not listening, and it's a moment that Rosemary wants to vent versus hear my opinion on things.
Right.
Or my
That's
son.
kind of like where you say, do you want to just vent, or
Yeah,
do you want me to
that's a
share
great-
some thoughts with
Yeah,
you?
that's a great thing. I have to kind of sink into my head and let that soak in, because that's a great way to approach it. Because with immediate family, you want to do this.
Right.
And most of the time, if your timing's terrible, you're making it worse for them.
Yeah. They have to be ready
Yeah.
to hear what you have to say. It's like that old, I think it's from The Karate Kid,
Mhm.
another movie quote, when the student is ready, the teacher will appear.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear what you have to say until they're ready to hear it. And I think we're all kind of that way.
The way I go, and I don't know about you, but the way I go about providing some insight or empathizing with them, or if they ask, help me figure this out, I'm not very direct about it. I'm like, no, you have to do this, this, and this. I'm a storyteller.
Which is the best way.
I just take them down. I'm like, hey, I had a situation over here that seems similar, and this is what I did, and it worked or it didn't work. Sometimes the story is, because I did this, it floundered. So I want to keep you away from that path. As I get older and older, I find more and more people open up to me.
Yeah, because they know that you're vulnerable too.
Yeah.
So just to go to real estate for a minute, I remember when I was doing my workshops, my contract workshops, I often used mistakes that I made as a new agent as a teaching lesson for them. And it was always a story.
Yeah.
It was always about something that I did incorrectly
Yeah.
that ended up working out okay.
Yeah.
But those stories about forgetting to write the washer and dryer into the contract or whatever,
Yeah.
things that I did wrong, stories always bring things to light much more than just saying, don't forget to write the washer and dryer into the contract. Things like that. The story brings it all to light, and they remember the story.
Yeah, it's funny. I'm going to tie this back to God a little bit, because I was having a conversation with a mutual friend of ours, Karen Schoen, who puts our positivity to shame.
She is amazing.
And she's very religious, and she's just wonderful to talk to. And we were going back and forth and having this conversation. I hadn't seen her in over a year, and I was so glad to see her. And I was explaining how I tell things in stories, and she goes, who else told things in stories? I was like, oh. And I knew where she was going. I was like, oh my gosh, Jesus, he tells everything in parables.
Right.
Right? And not that I'm comparing myself in any way whatsoever to Jesus,
You
but
have some of the similar attributes.
I don't have the hair. I promise you, I don't have the hair right now. But it was one of those enlightening moments. It was like, wow, all right, so I'm following closer than I think I'm following. It's kind of like when we talked about a kid all of a sudden doing the things that you've been, I don't want to say preaching, but encouraging them to do.
Right.
The things that will help them in their life, and they can't see it yet because they're so young and they haven't gone through the trials and tribulations of life. So they think that the path is easier than it is. A lot of us get into things because we think things are easier than they are, and then when they become hard, we have a greater tendency to quit them than it is to fight through them.
Exactly. But the other thing is with your family in particular.
Yeah.
So I'm thinking of your son Zachary.
Yeah.
So they watch what you do more than they listen to what you say.
Yeah.
So that's the other thing with kids. I mean, he watches you walk the walk.
Yeah.
I mean, you're not just talking the talk, you're walking the walk. So he's seeing how you go through this life, and that's the best way that you can teach him.
Yeah.
Rather than the words that you use, he's watching how you navigate this journey and everything that you do.
I'll share a wonderful moment. And he's going to be 18 now, so like in just a couple months. It's just
You're
crazy.
such an amazing young man.
So, you know, he comes home now. You know, he's not one of those teenagers that fights with you. He's very, very loving, very, very open.
Very, yes.
Talks to Rosemary a lot more in depth than he talks to me about, but he's starting to talk to me in depth. One day he came home and I was like, "Oh, how was your day?" And he's like, "Oh, it's great. I was talking to one of the security guards and everything like that, and we talk about God and we talk about things." And he's like, "I just want to go out there and make some people happy and make them smile like you do, Dad." And
Oh my
that,
goodness.
it's going to make me cry right now.
Well, yes, because what higher compliment can a child give a parent? There isn't one.
You know, and the second thing that, you know, I've always talked to him, it's like, listen, you can go through life and not know exactly what you want to do, but you always succeed if you work harder than everybody else at it. You know, and you might not want to do it. And I tell stories of when I was landscaping and we had a big neighborhood and our whole job that day was to go pick weeds. So there was 5 of us and we're all around the same age and we all went to school together. And, you know, for the sure thing, I knew it was going to be a boring day in the hot sun picking weeds in this neighborhood for hours and hours and hours. I said, "All right, contest, weed of the day, the biggest weed you can find." So we're on other sides of the road and we're all in these gardens and we're picking up these giant weeds. We're like, "Weed of the day," you know. So even the most mundane things and the things that you think are going to be hard and terrible or anything like that, you can find a way to make them positive. So he was just about ready to, he actually did give his 2 weeks notice for his job recently. He's had it close to a year right now, his first job ever. Because one of the managers was, like an assistant manager, was not a good manager. And that's 90% of the reason people want to leave a job is because of management, not because of pay, and not because of this.
So true. That is so true. And an unhappy work environment.
And the actual manager, the overriding manager of that, once he got word of it, he's like, "Listen, I want you to stay because you're a really good worker, you engage well with the clients and all of that stuff. You ask if there's something, you know, if you're done your task, you're asking, what else can I do to help?" And that's another moment in time, because I promise you, when you look at his bedroom, and as many times as I ask him to do something to his bedroom, which looks like it's, you know, "Oh, it's trash day." Well, where's the trash? It's all in that room. You know, for other people, he's this work, you know, hard, be helpful, be kind person. And he's all of those things. It's just that one little space on the planet
But that's
that
okay.
he neglects.
In the big scheme of
And
things.
you know, it doesn't drive Rosemary as much, which is interesting. The whole house can, you know, have Rosemary, you know, ready to, like, hey, we just got lock it down and get done with. But his room can be piles and piles. Like, open the door. It's like, "Hey, get ready for school." Close the door. I open the door and I'm not really. Cause I was like a kid. I was a neat freak. I was like, my bedroom was completely covered.
I have 3 sons, and some of them are like you.
Yeah.
Others were the complete opposite. His room looked like it was ransacked all the time, and then in between.
But
So
the neat part about that story was he understands it, and he applies it outward. And in his own little world, he just does what he does. But when it comes to engaging other people and helping other people, it's there. The things that we said and the things that we, you know, and you know, hopefully embedded in him. Like, these are all things that make your life easier. You know, I don't care where you land, where it comes to what you want to do with, you know, employment in your life and all of that stuff. I care about how hard you do it and how much you fight through the mundane parts of the things that happen in life. When you've been in real estate a long time, like I've been in mortgage a long time,
Since 1983, so what is that? That's a long time.
Yeah, I was 91. So it's not too far after you, but, and I was lucky, I was lucky in that journey, and I was lucky, is you're gonna find
I
moments.
was too.
Yeah, you're gonna find things that don't fit you, but don't quit because they're hard if you really want to do it.
Absolutely.
As you think back on your journey, because obviously being a real estate agent has a certain set of skill sets, but managing real estate agents has another set of skill sets. When you had those hard times, those hard lessons, those days that you're like, I don't want to get up and go to work today, because I know it's going to be hell. What are the things that you did at those moments that helped you get out of bed and go do it, and then at the end of the day, just be very thankful that you did get out of bed and push forward when it was hard?
So it was sort of it had to be a little bit of a different mindset when I was an agent, because when I was an agent, a lot of that was driven by the need to help support my family and the financial component of what I was able to earn. But I also enjoyed it, because one of the things that I've always enjoyed is building relationships with people. And being a real estate agent, that is the ultimate relationship between you and your seller, you and your buyer, and that was the part that I enjoyed the most. But I learned pretty early on when I was an agent that I became a trainer first, and I loved that part. I loved using the stories about my experience as an agent to teach other newer agents and also some experienced agents. And then I transitioned to being a manager, and then I became the regional VP up in the DC area. So each skill set sort of played upon each other. But for me, because I probably spent way more of my career being a manager than I was as an agent, for me, a lot of it had to do with knowing they needed what I had to teach them, and they needed me to help them through those difficult times. And so it was the desire to continue to do what I was doing. But I also learned, it was something that I heard a while ago, and then I heard it again recently, which really helped me a lot. When there's a task that you really don't want to do, and it can be something as silly as, weeding your garden, or for me, the little task at home that I never enjoyed doing is emptying the dishwasher. I don't know why. I just don't like doing it. But I switched my mindset from saying I have to empty the dishwasher to I get to empty the dishwasher. I get to take out my beautiful dishes and my silverware and put them in my cabinets in my kitchen that I love to cook in. So when you switch your mindset from I have to do this thing, I have to get out of bed in the morning because I have to go to work, to I get to get out of bed in the morning and go do what it's a privilege. Every day that we get to do those things is a privilege, because there's an awful lot of people out there, many, many people that don't have that privilege. So it's a little mindset shift.
That is true. It's one of the ways when I'm talking to people, actually I believe it's one of my special skill sets, is having the ability to look at things from, what would I say, lenses, multiple lenses, different points of view, coming at it. Because people are, we're inclined to look at things from our perspective and where we're sitting and everything, and everybody's in a different spot in their life or a different spot in that moment. And when you take the moment to understand where they're coming from and what lens they're looking through, I kind of think it's a unique skill set to be able to, because you might be in the same lane as them. Like, I agree with you, but they're still struggling. So if I don't agree with you and they can't find their way out, it's like, how can I put this in a way where I can, if I was in the same situation, come out of it? And it's like puzzle solving. I love puzzle solving, right?
Yeah.
So, and I can do it very quickly, and so I'm blessed with that. I'm very blessed with that. And then come in and talk to somebody about, well, I know you're looking at it like this way, but did you ever consider looking at it from this point of view? I had a friend of mine that came in, and she was in a car accident, and she was scared to go back into that city where her daughter and her granddaughter lived. she's like, I almost died. I was in a car accident. My car was totaled. Like the doctor said, I didn't break any bones. I didn't, you know, they were like, you're a miracle based on the car. It was mangled. But when she was in the hospital, she caught COVID. So she got really sick from the COVID, not from the car accident.
Right.
But in her mind, she was wrapped around the fact that she almost died in that city. And she was afraid to go back to that city. So I had a series of events that came up, and I'll probably walk through this in another podcast, but it was a unique set of 5 days. And I started on day 2, but then I circled back to day 1 because it was a conversation I had with my father on the last day, which he had something going on the first day that I didn't even know about. So it all tied together, and I was like, this is kind of really, really unique. So I told her that journey, and then I get back to storytelling, and I said, listen, I know you're afraid. I know this is something that you feel strongly about. I said, but the way I, see it right now is that you didn't almost die there. You were saved there. You could have been in Hollywood. You could have been in Del Rey. You could have been in Vero. And it could have been a different outcome. But you were close to your family, and it wasn't. You were saved there. And I since had a conversation with her last week, and she goes, my mindset completely changed after our conversation. And I finally seen my daughter.
Interesting. I have a similar sort of
Yeah.
thought process about that whole thing. So this is a story I don't think I've ever shared with you.
Yeah.
So when I was 17 years old, I was in a very bad car accident. I was the passenger. I was in high school. I was in my junior year of high school. And I was actually in the hospital for 3 months after that car accident.
Wow.
Not life-threatening injuries, but I broke my femur bone and I just had multiple injuries.
Yeah.
The car accident happened on February 25th. You just don't forget things like that. I knew the date. It was February 25th, 1972.
Well, now I'll remember because the day after my birthday.
Okay.
Yeah.
So fast forward to 2002. I had found a lump in my breast and ultimately was diagnosed with breast cancer. But I had gone for my biopsy, and the surgeon said, if I don't call you, by the late afternoon, I probably won't call you till tomorrow. I won't have the results back of the biopsy yet. So it was about 9 o'clock at night on February 25th, and my cell phone rings, and I saw that it was the surgeon, and he called to tell me it was malignant, that I had breast cancer.
Yeah.
And so those 2 major events that could have been life-threatening were on the same date, which I thought was...
That is weird.
Yeah, I thought it was very ironic.
Yeah.
But here's the mindset shift.
Yeah.
I think many people would think, oh my gosh, what do you do on February 25th? Do you crawl underneath the covers? But no, my thought process is exactly the opposite of that, and it's similar to what you shared with your friend. I think of it as my lucky days, because both of those things could have turned out to be life-ending, the car accident and the breast cancer diagnosis, and I've been free from breast cancer for, 23 years now.
Oh, yeah.
So, and the car accident was 50 years ago.
Yeah.
So honestly, I think of the whole mindset, I don't think of February 25th as a bad day. I think of it as a good day,
That's
a
awesome.
blessed day. So that's kind of a different mindset shift.
Yeah.
How you can take something and turn it around and think of it differently.
Yeah, I love that. I mean, that's because if you weren't diagnosed with that, at that day, you wouldn't have known about it.
Exactly. What if it had been months and months and months later or something? Exactly.
As I had funny, I'll share one last story before, I let you have your day, but we have to talk about something that's more serious than all of the stuff we're talking about, which is,
I know what you're going to say.
yeah, we'll get into it in a second.
Okay.
But now I lost my train of thought because I got so focused on the other thing.
Something that,
Yeah. Well, you know what? It's for another time.
all right,
If it left my mind, it wasn't that important.
that's right.
More importantly, the reason I'm actually bearing some garb right now is today is an important day for our 2 native lands where we
Yes.
came from.
Yes.
I came from the South Philly area in South Jersey, and you came from the DC metropolitan area,
Correct.
and they are playing each other. Now, I know this is going to post later on, so this might not seem, that I'm wearing these things relevant, but you and I are going to be at odds today.
Yes, we are. Yes, we
Friendly
are.
odds.
Yes.
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 Because I do have some admiration for your quarterback, who's a rookie, and I
He's
don't know if you
amazing.
noticed, I want you to pay attention to him, and the reason I love him so. And not just because he's a talented person, because there's a lot of talented people in the NFL. But one, he's always smiling.
Yes.
Two, he talks to the defense all the time, smiling.
Right.
So if you see on the breaks and they have a visual on him, he's usually over by the defense talking to somebody.
He's a true team leader. He is a team leader
but
and an
he's smiling.
inspiration,
He's like,
a motivator, and he's always relaxed looking.
relax, and just, but you're like, or maybe you got me, or maybe like this.
Right.
Well, I would love to be in his mindset to figure out, in those moments, because that's a hard game,
Yeah.
and
And he's a young guy.
He's a young guy, but he's got you can't not admire him, So although I'll be hoping that he doesn't succeed today,
Yes.
I've been looking forward to him succeeding in another time.
Can I tell you something funny about
Yes.
this whole Jaden Daniels thing? So, my oldest son is a football coach at FSU,
Mm.
and last year, when I would watch Jaden Daniels, I'd be thinking, oh, he is like incredible, but he's at LSU, and that's one of our opponents. But isn't it amazing how this year, now that he's with the Commanders, I love him.
Yeah.
So it's funny, another mindset
Yeah.
shift.
It is tough, especially people who are sports people, to not, and this happens in politics too, which drives me crazy. Is that you can't admire somebody that's on the opposition because they're on the
And
opposition.
isn't it a shame that you can't? Why is it that way?
It's weird.
Yeah, it is
Right?
weird.
It's right, and again, it's the mindset of tearing people down versus.
Can I
lifting
just say
them up.
one thing about that though? I don't know if you watched any of the coverage of Jimmy Carter's funeral, but it was incredible.
Yeah.
And there were many times I got teary, but the thing that I think inspired me the most was watching his Republican rivals, their children, because most of them have passed away,
Mhm.
get up and give eulogies.
Yeah,
The eulogy that was written by Gerald Ford that his son read about Jimmy Carter, and they were political rivals
Yeah.
who then became best friends.
yeah,
To me, that's so touching when that can happen.
Yeah.
And why can't the world be more that way in every area?
I think politics in general is a bit of a facade.
Yeah.
They what they present in front of everybody else is not how
They
they
pretend
present.
they don't like each other.
Yeah, I think there's a lot more friendships and dialogue in between each other.
I
But
think you're right.
the nastiness is, it's one of the things
Yeah.
that why people don't give good ratings to any politicians or the government in general, is because of that. But that's for another time.
For another time.
Good luck, not great luck today. Thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you so much
very
for
blessed
having
to
me.
have you as a friend in my life,
Thank
to
you,
have you as an
same.
inspiration in my life. And I look forward to many, many, many more years of us doing fun, motivational, helpful, just enjoying each other's company and success going forward.
I look
Thank you so
forward to
much.
that too, Brian. Thank you so much.
I'm feeling super fantastic, awesome.